And now, next up, we're talking about upskilling and reskilling. And I'm very pleased to introduce the moderator of our second panel of the day, Ulrika Bargadelia, who is the Senior Director of Digital Economy, Technology, and Innovation at the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. And Ulrika, we're really looking forward to this conversation. I'll turn things over to you now.
Well, thank you very much for the kind introduction, Catherine, as always, and welcome everybody to the afternoon portion of the summit, starting with, or about afternoon, sorry, I'm in Nova Scotia, 80 time scale, so I'm already a little bit ahead of you. It's the topic on, very important topic, transitioning women in the workforce, all about upskilling and reskilling, looking at skills for the future, sectors for the future, and I will go into a little more detail for everybody to understand the four key themes that we will be covering here today. It's really an honor to be here, and it's an honor to be moderating such an important and relevant and timely topic well into the future. This is a topic that is ongoing and has been progressing as well, which is fantastic. So the four key themes we are looking to cover today will be pandemic recovery and women in the workforce. Then we go into career development for women, where we look at what can businesses do, but also what can government and educational institutions do for businesses to help to address career development for women in the workforce and in the workplace. And then we have as well as the next topic, skills and skills for the future and the sectors for the future. That's all interconnected. It goes hand in hand. And we know it's fast paced these days, right? It's all running along. Lastly, systemic issues. And may I say, we could have actually a whole panel on this. There are unfortunately far too many, but we will cover that area, of course, as part of today's conversation as key area 4. So looking at the screen, I'm being joined today by 4 remarkable leaders, speakers, and a wonderful group of people coming here together. I had the honor to prepare for this panel discussion. I had many conversations leading up to it. And there would be Angela Biwoodi of Engine. We have Marie-Hélène Labrie of Kujiko, and Vicky Benoit of Garda World, and then Pedro Barata of the Future Skills Center. What a diversity as well, which is the beauty again of these conversations, because you want different perspectives and different backgrounds in order to have a really meaningful and fruitful conversation. So I'm really excited for this. Well, without much further ado, I think I've spoken enough already. I'm giving actually now the panel and Mike the floor over to some opening remarks per panelist so they can talk a little bit about the theme, how they see the panel to play out, and maybe say a little bit about themselves as well and their background. Angela, may I start with you, please?
Sure. Thank you, Ulrike. And first, I'd like to thank you and the Chamber for inviting me to be part of this panel. I think it's incredible for the Chamber to be hosting this summit, for a full-day summit focusing on women's issues. I've been in the workforce for over 20 years, half of that in the private sector, half in the public sector, and working with an NGO. And so this topic of transitioning, upskilling, reskilling hits close to home. And I'm very much looking forward to having this conversation today with the esteemed panelists.
Well, thank you very much, Angela. Well, it's an honor to have you here. Thank you for having accepted to share your insights and experience with us here today. Pedro, may I ask you please next to share some opening remarks?
Thank you, and thank you for the invitation. It's a real honor to be the guy on the panel. I feel super special. My name is Pedro Barata. I'm Executive Director of the Future Skills Center. At the center, we're essentially looking at how the labor market is changing now, but is also going to continue to change. And we partner with organizations in the private sector, with employers, with intermediaries, with post-secondary education institutions, with community-based organizations to experiment and pilot how it is that we can create the right skills mix and the right skills interventions, anticipating how jobs are going to change. And together across the country, we have about 130 partnerships currently, all kinds of sectors in every geography, working with many different populations, and we're piloting, we're we're learning from those pilots and the innovation that's emerging, and we're sharing what we're learning with the ecosystem. And my theme for today, especially in this transition, is very much grounded in our own work, which is around collaboration. I think that we are at a stage now heading into the recovery where we have to take the lessons learned during the pandemic, where we actually learned how to work together and to trust each other in ways that perhaps weren't there before, or there were muscles that we hadn't been exercising for a while. And I think it's really critical that we take some of those lessons around collaboration and break silos across sectors, because we can't rely on employers alone are not going to be able to solve the skills challenge. Neither is government, neither are post-secondary institutions, and we have to be able to just work together better. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation, and thanks again for the invitation.
Well, thank you, Pedro. And noting that you're the only guy on the panel, we're happy to have you. And often, as you know, it's the opposite, that it is a lot of men on the panel. So anyways, this is a beautiful balance. I really like that. Thanks for having joined us for the conversation. Marie-Hélène, may I please ask you to go next?
Thank you, Ulrike, and thank you for the invitation. I think it's a great initiative, and I think the Chamber has demonstrated great leadership in the last year with regards to the pandemic. So I'd like to just recognize that, especially the Recovery Leadership Council, which has been put together, which our CEO is part of, I think is a great initiative. And the Council for Women's Advocacy, which I'm involved in, is also a great initiative. So in addition to today's conference, I think it's important to recognize all the work that's being done by the Chamber. Kujiko is a telecommunication and media company. So we operate in both Quebec, Ontario, and in 11 states in the United States. We offer internet, telephony, and video services, as well as operate 23 radio stations in Quebec. So we really strive to be to make Kujiko a leading workplace where female talent is enabled to reach their full potential. So I'm quite excited by the panel and the discussion, the exchanges, and to share some initiatives we're putting together.
Well, thank you, Marie-Hélène, and thank you everybody also for the kind words about the Chamber. We are honored to have you all here for sure. And may I hand the mic to you, Vicky? Looking forward to hearing from you now.
Thank you. So I echo all of the other comments, thanking the Chamber of Commerce for holding this incredible day. I joined Garda World 2.5 years ago, and after a 32-year career at Air Canada. And while I was at Air Canada, I held probably over 20 different positions. So you could call me the poster girl for upskilling and reskilling. Garda World Aviation Services is responsible for the airport security screening at 27 airports in Canada. So, you know, do you have liquids? Take out your laptop. That's us. The majority of our employees are frontline screening officers. So they could not work at home. They were working at the airport every day. And unfortunately, at the height of the pandemic, we did have to lay off over half of our staff. So pre-COVID, 5,000 employees, and over half had to be laid off. The male-female split is rather interesting. In management, it's more male-dominated. However, on the screening officer front, the majority of the screening officers are women. So I am very excited to have this discussion today, and I've really enjoyed the conference. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Vicky and Pedro and Marie-Hélène and Angela once again. So now it's time to dive into the conversations and the questions that I have for you and the key themes. And we had lots of interesting email exchanges and conversations leading up to this panel. So this is going to be a really insightful and also, I hope, a little bit lots of food for thought for our audience as well, and action-oriented and pragmatic, what we had agreed on, which brings me actually to question number one. Pedro, you had mentioned also in your opening remarks, recovery, you talked about economic challenges perhaps, and we often heard about the K-shaped recovery. And if you could comment on this a little more, what it means for women in the workforce as well, how can policy, business practices mitigate some of the ongoing impacts? And so if you could please start off, that would be wonderful.
Sure. And I do want to start on a positive note, and I think that this has been part of the conversation so far. It's finding that positive energy out of a lot of bad that we've seen over the course of the past 18 months. And it looks like we are finally turning the corner on the pandemic and headed toward a recovery, this time for real. The vaccines are rolling out. We're seeing cautious reopening. It's great to finally go to a patio in my own neighborhood. The economic signals, like rising employment, are quite positive for both for men and women overall. And it should be noted as well that governments are not sitting on their hands, and we're seeing budgets that are really meant to inject resources into keeping the momentum going on the recovery. So this is all positive news, of course, always cautious optimism, and as leaders we have to lead with positive energy, but also with caution, because this has not been certainly a straight line. But of course, a lot has changed over the past 18 months. And the changes that really we've seen starting into the pandemic, they're not going to simply snap back to the way the world was before. And I think, we're all noting this in our comments. What we've experienced, they're not minor tweaks at the edges. They signal a real transformation in how we work. And that transformation is here to stay. And I think that's where this concept of a K-shaped recovery really comes in. It means that there's a real division between those who are highly skilled and who are already benefiting from a return to good or positive employment conditions. But many others, and particularly those in lower skilled jobs, are facing an upward and in many ways unpredictable struggle to stay afloat. And in terms of what this means for women, the Canadian economist Armin Yalnizyan coined the term of a she-cession to describe how this economic downturn has been different from what we've experienced before in previous cycles. In previous downturns, we saw sectors like construction, manufacturing, sectors that have traditionally employed men get hardest hit. But this time, it's workers in lower wage jobs, and especially those in food services, accommodation, retail trade, sectors that disproportionately employ women, where the deepest and widest change is really continued to be experienced and quite unpredictable. So these sectors are where change has really happened deeply and where disruption is going to accelerate. Because what we're seeing at the Future Skills Center is a real sense of urgency from employers around the adoption of new technology and automation. And so think about the sectors that were hardest hit and how the change is going to continue to happen. Acceleration of online shopping for retail, online ordering and self-pickup, automated checkout counters, automation of logistics and warehousing. That's a lot of jobs right there. And that's a lot of jobs that have traditionally employed women. And women who are at the lower skill, lower wage side of the economy. So what do we do about it? Skills are obviously important in terms of helping industries adapt and pivot the energy to areas of growing opportunity. And for example, in retail, the work that we are doing in the retail sector with employers is to really recognize that if retail is moving online, then we need to figure out how we accelerate reskilling programs for frontline retail workers to pick up skills around online supports, analytics. And again, what this pivot is really going to require is collaboration and ensuring that we're all working in tandem. And again, we've learned through the pandemic that by collaboration, by more trust across sectors, we can actually make really important things happen for society. And carrying on that energy, I think, is going to be key.
Very important word there you mentioned, among many important words, Pedro, but it's really collaboration, to work together, because we're all in this together. Connections are being made, cooperation as well. We can't do this neither of us by ourselves. So it's almost, you have private public partnerships, the whole country coming together as citizens and so forth. So that was one very important item among many I picked up on. In addition to also, you mentioned online and retail, we know e-commerce, and more people, we would like to encourage them to embrace it. And then always keeping in mind these cybersecurity elements with it once you're online, that you ensure you protect yourself properly. So thank you very much for that, which leads me also to another conversation I had with actually you, Marie-Hélène. And it's as well about how is the post-COVID context impacting how you address skills development within Kujiko, your own organization, which is, we had fantastic conversations about it. I'm really impressed there. And what are some of the key skills our economy needs in the context of the economic recovery? So going far post-COVID and of course, building back better. And on those elements, I look forward to hearing your thoughts again. Thank you, Marie-Hélène.
So thank you, Ulrike. So I think during COVID, we had the opportunity to really optimize online as a tool for skill development because we had no choice. So I guess in our the new hybrid work model, so I think for skill development, it will be presenting opportunities, but also challenges. So on the opportunity side, I think it will give us more flexibility in terms of how we can provide skill development for our workforce and for women, because we'll be able to do the mix of face-to-face and online, and in terms of efficiency, reducing travel costs and travel time. So I think we can benefit from that. And I think we hope that also women will also benefit from the fact that that flexibility model in the work will provide more opportunities for skill development. That's kind of the hope here, because it's flexible, and we know that women are looking for more flexibility as well. So we believe there's opportunities. What we did at Kujiko, we took that opportunity to enhance our talent development experience. And we took the initiative of rebranding, revamping, and strengthening our talent development experience. And we recently launched with some of our VPs, with all the VPs across Canada and the US, what we call Kujiko Lead. And LEAD stands for leadership, engagement, active learning, as well as development. And in this framework, we've included all the skill development tools, and we're going to be launching that officially with all employees in July. But in terms of the challenges that this new model brings in terms of skill development, we know that women have changed the way they want to work. And so I think we'll need to be mindful of that. And I just want to quote Ulrike some statistics. Compared to 6 months ago, 48% of women have become either much less or somewhat less likely to want to return to the physical workplace full-time. And roughly 24% of both women and men would prefer to adopt a hybrid working arrangement after COVID. Men, however, intend to spend 3-4 days per week in the physical workplace, while women intend to spend only 2-3 days per week. And I've seen several statistics, and I had also discussions internally. So the potential challenge and potential impact is that by being less visible, we may regress. We may see regression in the inroads women have made into executive suites, into career development as well, because we know how the informal being physically there. And there's a Gartner study, maybe last statistics, that reveals that 64% of managers believe that office workers are higher performers than remote workers, while Gartner analysis showed the opposite. It says that full-time remote workers are 5% more likely to be high performers than those on site. So there is a perception maybe that if you are on site, you're more performing, and by having less women on site may become a challenge. So we do need to take that into account when developing the plans for the return to the workplace. And maybe the last point on skill required, I think we'll need a mix of soft skills and hard skills. And on the soft skills, I think building back better involves building a more inclusive and more diverse workplace. So communication skills, empathy, and all the training on unconscious bias. We also engage in more skill development around these themes. Leadership management skills, I think, are going to remain very, very important and a big focus for us. But I want to touch on digital skills. We know there's the gap there, the STEM gap. So, and we need to be mindful of that and to retain the great talent we have of women in our workforce. We want to really increase training on digital skills, but also for all our workforce, because we are a company enabling the digital economy, and we know how data, and Pedro just talked about it, data analytics, predictive analytics is extremely important for the new economy as well, and we need women to be trained as well. So this is really a big focus as well for us.
Thank you, Marie-Hélène. And I really always enjoy statistics and data because it's something we can work with. It shows that there are either opportunities or challenges and real issues. And just listening to your overview shows us both sides, the opportunity and the big challenges that have been there probably for a much longer time, that we will be facing, and so forth. So thank you very much for providing that. It's incredibly important always to have all the stats and data at hand. And just the different divisions as well of what might be and could be, and the perception. That is actually sometimes quite astonishing for the mere reason that I would like to think that having or working from home, and in particular the many hours, and you are visible in terms of the results, right? So the results and the outcome that one brings, I hope those will continue to be measurables, and not if one shows up in the office and turns on the light and sits on the chair behind the computer. So there's a lot of work to be done, in my opinion, which brings me to the next topic of, and you touched upon it, career development and skills for women, and looking at businesses, but also what government and education institutions can do. So from that perspective, Angela, may I bring you into the conversation and ask you actually, in your opinion, where are we seeing good business leadership, good practices and successes? That's what we would like to look at and embrace, that are worth highlighting in terms of ensuring there is good career development and opportunity for women. And maybe some concrete examples of what should be and could be replicated, because that's what we aim, looking at good examples, best practices, and maybe considering how we can do it ourselves too.
Yes, thanks, Ulrike. As I was listening to Marie-Hélène, I was thinking about what is the role of the company or an organization in enabling the best out of their employees, and making sure that there's great engagement and motivation. And one of the things that always comes to mind is the best employers are the ones that recognize the humanity of their employees, right? And the fact that we are not employees generally, none of us are robots. We're not able to sustain a long-term full engagement for 40, 50 years in the workforce without having also a certain amount of work-life balance. So I think when I look at the best employers, they're the ones that offer flexible schedule, that are able to offer flexible schedules if they're office-based. Certainly in the pandemic, recognizing that people have responsibilities at home, that they are responsible then to produce their work based on the outputs and not necessarily the time of day that the work is getting done. That they're providing the resources, the computer, the digital capabilities, all of that to be able to work from home, particularly in the pandemic and maybe beyond. and also provide some white space, right? So in our schedules, it's important to, first of all, basic best practices, starting meetings 5 minutes later than the hour, providing opportunities for bio breaks, having meetingless afternoon, maybe a meetingless Friday afternoon so that people can catch up on their emails during work hours and not on their own time. Mandating, I know Amgen Canada, some of the amazing work that they did in the past year, they mandated certain days were just to shut down. The entire office was shut down so that people did not feel by taking time off they'd be missing out on, being available and then having to catch up on everything when they came back into the office. So there are really very practical steps that employers can take if they have office-based staff. Now, I do recognize that some people do have to physically go into work, and that presents a completely different set of challenges. And then on the point about returning back in this post-pandemic world, I think it won't be exactly as it was before. We've done surveys. We know that some employers, many employees, in fact, do want to continue work from home options. They like the flexibility it provides. However, they also miss collaborating. They miss being in the office, and nothing can really replace that interpersonal collaboration that sometimes occurs at the, proverbial water cooler or at the coffee station or at lunch. And so these are the types of challenges I think we're going to have facing all of us as we move into a quote unquote post-pandemic life. And one of the things, specific to women that Amgen has done really successfully is a mentorship program that actually existed before. Not just mentorship, we call it Women We Too, so Women Empowered to Be Exceptional, program that provides the opportunity to connect with others, not just women. We have men in the organization as well as, allies. There are guest speakers and mentorship and opportunities to recognize a great job that's been done by women in the organization. And it's really focused on celebrating, right? Celebrating each other's achievements, celebrating the fact that there are women leaders in the organization that can provide some expertise to the newer employees. So I think there have been a lot of great things learned in this pandemic, and I'm excited to see how it translates into the next phase.
Yeah, thank you very much, Angela. For sure, we have learned so many, I would like to always think positive elements actually in terms of how we can work from home if you said like if we are properly equipped, whether it's equipment or certain programs, and again, cybersecurity awareness to protect ourselves, our organizations, our families, and so forth. So it is possible, and digitalization has really happened at an accelerated pace. So I must say, I hope we are not going back to where it was before, because that's almost regression, right? To embrace it, what we have, and make the best of it and accommodate accordingly. So thank you very much for sharing that. And on that note, Marie-Hélène, you and I have spoken about that particular element too that Angela just addressed. And you mentioned as well, Marie-Hélène, previously in that context, digital skills. And I would like if you can as well add a little bit from that perspective. Are there any concrete skills or ways as well that women could prepare themselves and ensure they are part of the digital economy and so forth, as part of your, in particular, also digital skills component? And to Angela's stories about best practices, anything we should or could be replicating and learn from to be set for the future.
Thank you, Ulrike. So developing digital skills at Kujiko is really part of our people strategy. So this is really important to us, and also all the talent, as I said, retaining that talent, but also recruiting new talent. We believe we need to be well equipped, and we are also partnering with external groups. And you know that Montreal is a great hub for artificial intelligence, data, etc. So we are very well positioned to develop further all the skill development, and also for women internally to really be able to develop those digital skills. So we are already a partner of Ivado, and Ivado, for those of you who don't know, they are a leading collaborative institution in the field, and they are partnering with different groups and really developing those skills, but also to share those so that the society can benefit from those. So we're in discussions to take that partnership to a next level, and developing training tools and training for us internally. In terms of other initiatives we've put together to really ensure we have also a gender balanced workplace is a tailored management leadership program with McGill. This was launched, I think, about 4 years ago, and we do have great representations and participations from women. And this is a great program. We had to put it on pause because it was more physical training, but this is something we will be relaunching, and I think we are at our third or fourth group. But like Angela said, we do have also at Kujiko what we call our Kujiko Women's Network. That was put together, created about 4 years ago. This was the initiative of colleagues who decided to really put together this informal network to really promote and support women's advancement by providing opportunities for development, networking, but also supporting external visibility as well as social involvement to get to participate to boards, for example, of nonprofit organizations, but also to enable diversity and inclusion. And what's great about this network that is, like Angela said, it provides all kinds of opportunities. There's a book club, conferences being organized, etc. And there's really kind of 4 pillars that have been put together, and we have co-leaders, colleagues who are leading those. And whatever what your ranking is, hierarchical or position, you're really the leader for this pillar, and you have the opportunity to demonstrate your management skills. So it's a great tool, very powerful. The mentorship program as well is a third initiative I wanted to mention to finish. The mentorship program, I had the opportunity to participate as a mentor. The mentorship relationship is really a privilege for both participants. I really enjoyed that experience myself, and the feedback from participants is really amazing. This was developed really a very simple program with a platform to really help us do the matching internally. But we discovered that this is an extremely powerful tool for career development. The feedback and creates also engagement. And it provides this strong sense of sisterhood, and really it's great. And it's not coaching, it's really more informal, and it's a great experience, and it's quite popular. So we believe this is a great tool for career development.
Yeah, thank you, Maria-Hélène. And actually thinking about one other area in terms of what could be replicated or done differently, maybe if I may ask you, maybe one short comment on what could the C-suite do differently? Is there anything, could there, very important, it's coming often top down. Any recommendations there?
Well, I've been thinking about this. I believe that the C-suite has such an important role in the talent development and the succession plan. And every year when we go or take the time to go over talent, identify gap, what are the career path, the opportunities, I think we have to really, the C-suite in general across our organization needs to take that very seriously, because I think it's so powerful. And we take that quality time, roundtable, we sit down and we have those conversations, and it's amazing how we can progress and also bounce ideas of lateral move for women also and other colleagues, and where we can say, okay, we should develop maybe more of these types of skills for our talent. But I think it's a great exercise, and the strategic planning process of a company, I believe we have to integrate those into the people strategy reflection and all of that. So I think it's more about maybe taking more of the time to do that, and the quality time as executives to really focus on these key elements.
Oh, great advice. Everybody take note. Thank you so much. No, this is fantastic. On moving actually now from businesses that we discussed into government, education, and training institutions. Pedro, you and I had conversations about that. So I'd like to hear your view, what could be done on that front to help businesses and support them in their efforts for career development.
Yeah, and having thought about our conversations, I think that, for example, looking at the last federal budget in April, the number one ask from the federal government is execute on really key commitments that were made. And I'm thinking particularly about two things. One of them was the historic investment in early learning and childcare. And we have already talked today about the importance of moving to potentially moving to a hybrid model that ensures more flexibility for us to work from home. And it's no secret, no surprise that there continues to be a significant gap, right, between men and women, of course, in terms of childcare. And if we are going to have more of that flexibility, even within the hybrid model, we need to ensure that that our kids are well taken care of in ways that are affordable and accessible, and in ways that make sense for parents' working conditions. And I think that that's key. We've been waiting a long time to see some progress on that front. We've already talked about the impact that the pandemic and the recovery is going to have, especially on those who are at the low end of the skills spectrum, and the importance of investing in upskilling and reskilling, and really asking Canadians and many of them women who perhaps are in more straitened circumstances, have less time, to take time off to reskill and upskill and get into a new career. And that needs to come with some supports. And I think early learning is going to be absolutely essential in terms of how it's well implemented. And that's not going to be easy. But the other part of the budget that actually didn't get a lot of play and is going to be key for all of us is an additional about $5 billion that the federal government has injected into skills development. And in pretty targeted ways. The federal government made significant commitment, over $1 billion, to help small, medium enterprises have the ability to skill up online and to build new digital tools that provide, small, medium enterprises that don't have a lot of bandwidth, don't have a lot of extra dollars, often don't know where to turn in terms of doing basic digital upskilling. To work, with organizations, hopefully like chambers, right, to be able to provide that digital online support. Also, looking at skills from a regional perspective, we're seeing a lot of change regionally. Like, look at the shifts in oil and gas, right? Look at the shifts that are happening in manufacturing, even in agriculture, as agriculture moves to adopt technology, right, as a way of doing business. There are going to be lots of regional impacts in terms of skills needs, and the federal government's also targeting that. And I think it's, to use a very long multisyllabic word that's very important. Also looking at intersectionality, right, and how it is that gender, alongside with race, with immigration status, how compounding some of these factors increasingly, sort of determines who's going to have an easier time in career progression, and who is going to be facing more barriers. So I guess from a government perspective, from a government policy perspective, we are seeing governments do the right thing in terms of saying these are the pillars of the recovery, and these are where the dollars need to go. But the devil's going to be in the details, and that takes me to the point around what is it that education and training needs to do. Education and training, and the world of post-secondaries it needs to work much more closely with employers and be much more responsive to how the labor market's changing, how skills are changing, and how it is that training programs need to be very responsive to the reality of both Canadian workers and Canadian employers. And I mean, to go back to retail, and just to give you an example, we're working with the Career Foundation, just one of our many pilots, to ask how we work, particularly with women who are the most likely to be at the losing end of a K-shaped recovery, and in retail, working with industry leaders like Shopify. We're creating new certification for remote workers in sales and customer service and data analytics and cybersecurity. And to Marie-Hélène's point, also recognizing that alongside the digital technical skills, we also need to invest in social emotional skills. So all of the importance of collaboration, of leadership, of resilience, of really embracing lifelong learning. Those are really important things to build up alongside with technical skills. So ultimately, we're going to have to get a lot more flexible in recognizing that this change that we've experienced, it's not going to stop. Hopefully, it won't happen at the same clip, but change is going to be a constant. And how is it that post-secondary education institutions, training institutions, get a lot better at reaching out to employers, putting themselves in a position to be much more responsive, and frankly, also being equipped with the dollars and resources to allow them to do that outreach, relationship building, and new project development. That's the kind of work that we're investing a lot in at the Future Skills Center. We're starting to see some great results. And again, hopefully the spirit of collaboration that's been so important over the course of the pandemic will see us through to ongoing shared prosperity.
Well, thank you, Pedro. There was definitely a lot of passion, which is fantastic, on the skill side of things as well, which is a topic I know, Vicky, you are very passionate about too. Skills, career progression for women, the key core competencies. So may I ask you, as we move into our theme 3 of skills for the future, sectors for the future, what are your recommendations, what women should focus on? How can they progress, and what the skills that they should be embracing and considering to focus on and into the future?
Thank you, Ulrike. I mean, there's a couple of components we're going to talk about in the next few discussion topics. I really liked what Mandy said earlier, is that the pandemic was like it's a tornado followed by a tsunami. So it turned upside down how we work, how we live. And, not only have people had to adapt, but companies have had to adapt. And if you Google post-pandemic skills, which is probably a high Google topic, most of the lists are similar. So digital skills, highly important. And Marie-Hélène talked about that. So I'm actually not going to talk too much about digital. Then the list goes on to soft skills, people skills, emotional intelligence, and high on the radar, really, resilience and adaptability, very important. So again, focusing on soft skills, and the topic of soft skills has really been evolving over the past few years, but the pandemic has really highlighted their importance. And there's a lot of scientific evidence that show us how soft skills are really predictors of job performance and career success, and how you will become a leader in the future. So I'd like to pick just one soft skill that we can all work with and identify with, is communication skills. And if you look at how COVID has impacted communication skills, we've moved away from face-to-face meetings, face-to-face. This conference, would have been face-to-face, in person, and we've gone to video calls, phone calls. Our email boxes have overflown. So it's really changed. And if you consider that 55% of communication is actually body language, 38% is voice and tone, and only 7% is actually the words that you're either speaking or writing. You know, it's no wonder that communication has really taken a hit during the pandemic, and it's something that we're going to have to bring back. So as an employer of a large frontline workforce, we wanted to look at how we communicate to our employees. And so we launched a project because our processes were broken well before the pandemic. And you know what the project team who took on this task was, they realized that we actually needed to go back to the basics. And I would say that this is something we all need to look at. We developed a training course, and as Pedro said, it's now the reach of training has really become easier because you don't have to try to get people in the same room. You can do it online. So this training was really going back to the basics, things that people already knew. Be careful when you reply all. Use clear and concise language. Don't forward an email to the wrong person. Very basic things, and just really bringing them back to using their muscle memory, practicing, and following up. So communication is going to be a key skill for the future.
Thank you very much, Vicky. There were so many pragmatic and actionable items. And I like that you said it might be basic, keeping it simple, it's relatable, it's implementable. And you know what, it's so important. Again, sorry to mention cybersecurity, don't click on that link, or this might be a phishing attempt. We think it's simple, but it's so important. It's all the detail, and you pointed it out so nicely. And it's, again, very relatable, and for people to just take that and implement it and consider doing better and doing it differently. And in that context, you and I spoke as well about career change. How do you tackle that? It's not only skills per se, but what do you do if you're looking for a change in career? And perhaps if you want to enter an area where you have no previous experience, which is embrace a new path. How do you do it? And the rewarding elements that come as well with it. So looking forward to hearing from you about that as well, Vicky. Thank you.
Well, Pedro talked about lifelong learning. So I am a lifelong learner. When I was at Air Canada, as I said, I moved around the company quite a bit. And I always wanted to expand on my experience, my knowledge, and getting exposed. I mean, I love travel. I love everything to do with it. So I'm an airline junkie. I wanted to be exposed to as much as I could. And I really believe that lateral moves are important. You cannot always be moving up. And I've interviewed some young people lately, and perhaps they're not interested in the job because they don't see it as a move up. But I would really argue that in order to jump into and land into an area that you may not have all the ideal skills for, would be going to a lateral move. And I have a story about a woman who I worked with during one of our union strikes. So this was in 2011, and the customer service union went on strike. So all of the managers were quickly trained and launched into the airports to basically run the airline. And one of our senior financial managers who knew the numbers of the airport, knew how the airport ran, she actually loved her experience working at the airport so much that she took a demotion. So sometimes even a demotion is what you can do to learn a completely new area. And she decided she's going to leave financial services, and she went to work in customer service at an airport. The other thing I would say is take whatever training your organization is offering. Again, I was very fortunate, some key training that was offered to me, project management, which can serve any type of job or career, and even Six Sigma. I think looking at spreadsheets is not my favorite thing to do, but what Six Sigma did teach me is that data, and we're talking a lot about data as skills. Data tells the story, and data can be very convincing. So that's that. Just be ready to pivot.
Yeah, thank you, Vicky. And I liked as well and appreciate your comment on a lateral move, which is so important because we can grow and progress. And it's the same about titles. It doesn't have to be that seat title. There is just so much more in terms of content and achievement, in terms of that career progression. Looking at the time, I still want to cover, we have 10 more minutes, our last topic, systemic issues. And I mentioned we can have a whole panel on it. Now we have not so much time left to do it, but Angela, you and I spoke about it, and Vicky, you and I spoke about it as well. And Angela, may I ask you first, what are you most passionate or even concerned about when it comes to, in your opinion, the key systemic issue that you would like to bring to our attention here?
Yeah, I mean, I think systemic issues in terms of with issues that affect women, particularly at home, working from home. If we are to switch more to a home-based office environment, it's about providing the tools to your employees to be able to get their job done, right? And also, and I think as Vicky said, there's a lot of training that goes with that. So it's not just about the hardware and the computers and the audio equipment, but it's about having the support within the organization to allow women to do the work-life balance and to carry out their home responsibilities in addition to delivering on results. I think what Vicky was talking about, making lateral moves in order to move up, in order to change careers, really hits home for me. It's absolutely true. And even if it means moving into a job temporarily that's not terribly interesting to you, but you know that that's the way you may gain new knowledge, new contacts, networking, etc. All of those are important.
Thank you very much, Angela. And Vicky, is there anything you wish to add as you touched upon this important topic as well?
Yeah, we're talking about work-life balance. And I think, we hear a lot about work-life balance and how do you do it? And we've talked about some practical things, and actually the previous panel did talk about it as well. And it's really being able to carve out time, healthy time for yourself. Now, my boys are 29 and 27. I did not have the challenge that I saw many of my team who were working from home juggling, school-aged children and the schools being closed and having to, find the time to work and then be a homeschool teacher. Using your calendar, even for one of the other panelists talked about, blocking time for your lunch. I've actually done that myself. Blocking time for exercise. Another colleague of mine called it me time, which I really love. So it's a bit like, here's another airline, and it's not even an analogy, it's the truth. So when you board the plane and the flight attendant is giving you the safety announcement, and they say, when the oxygen mask drops, put your own oxygen mask on first before you assist others. That is true in life. You have to, it's important to look after yourself so that you can look after your family, your team, your business. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, thank you very much. I couldn't agree more, because what good are we for whom or for, whether family or employers, if we don't really take care of ourselves. So thank you very much. That is a very nice finishing, thought-provoking, actionable item for everybody on the panel and in the audience. And looking at a whole rainbow of questions, there's one though that is all the way like top up and a lot of thumbs up. So I should be noting this one probably first, and in the last minutes left. I just read it off as is, and then whoever wishes to take it may answer. What are your thoughts about how we can encourage women to consider new careers they may never have thought of before? I think we touched upon that actually already as well. We want the skills they have from their previous industry, but in male-dominated industries, how can we draw them in? And another comment was also made on the trades as well. It's also a very male-dominated sector. Is there anyone who wishes to take on that question and respond to it?
I'll weigh in. I mean, I've heard on numerous occasions that women don't apply for jobs unless they feel 100% qualified for it. And really, you should be aiming for a job where you're maybe 70% or 75, 80% qualified. There has to be room for growth, right? So I always like to encourage other women to just go for it, to put in your application, talk to the people you need to talk to. The worst that could happen is that you may not be considered or you may not get it, but the best that can happen is that you can, challenge yourself and sort of pave a new path for yourself and maybe for someone else.
I'd like to add the lifelong learner. I think that's a very good expression. And I think if all women take this kind of approach, that the jobs and the challenges were presented that are there in front of us are really an opportunities to learn more. And that's how I've approached my career. I changed industry 3 times. This is a big move because you are very comfortable. I started in aerospace. I then moved to clean tech, and I'm now in telecom. And it's a big challenge to learn a new industry each time, but also by taking new responsibilities. I started as a public servant in Ottawa, and I moved into the private sector, and I touched on different, I now lead public relations, communications, and strategy at Kujiko. But I think this interest in learning should drive our career as well. Not only to focus on the capabilities, as you're mentioning, Angela.
I will add just on, those are great points on the supply side. I will add on the demand side that employers can also really help by creating targets or even threshold that we want to achieve around what does management look like, right? What does a C-suite look like? So that we recognize that those systemic barriers are there, that sometimes people hold themselves back. And we put the onus on ourselves to go that extra mile and to make sure that in our interview process and our search process and even on our accountability, right, to whoever our shareholders are, that we have very explicit commitments about how we want to see diversity play out. And I think that that's something that we can also take on and help overcome some of those barriers.
Thank you.
Would add,
I wanted to say, is there anything you wish to add, Vicky? Thanks.
Yeah, just to add, networking. So if you're looking at a career that, or you don't even know, you want to change, but you don't know where you want to go. I have to say, my son does this brilliantly. He finds somebody on LinkedIn that he thinks has a very cool job or an interesting industry. He asks them, would you have coffee? Or he, looks out to his network. And it's not to say I'm looking for a job. It's just to have a conversation. And that's how you learn about different areas that you might not have considered before is through networking.
Oh yeah, that's fantastic, because networking and networks are so important, and that goes with mentorship and sponsorship as well, to support each other. And sometimes we just have to be the first and take that step and have the confidence, courage, and maybe then charisma in order to say, Yes, I'm the first. Let's try it, and hopefully others follow and see you can do it. It's doable. So thank you very much. I'm looking at the time. It's almost 12:20. This has been so exciting. We should have actually round two, workforce roundtable, 2.0. There is so much to cover. Thank you for everybody's insights, experience, personal stories, organizational stories, and the elements of soft skills and interpersonal skills and emotional intelligence that are so important in addition to all the digital and tech skills and the skills for the future. Like I said, everything is being digitalized or digitized. We're moving at a fast pace. It's very difficult to keep up. Even for, I mean, I come from the tech sector, but I think it's moving all far too fast. And we have to be sometimes really careful that digital divide on many levels and that we don't get overwhelmed. Take good care of our mental health as well, our physical well-being, and collaborate while we're all doing this. So thank you one more time, once again.